Hey everybody, Jim and Joshua here to talk about Fantastic Four. This is a full-on spoiler cast, people. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie, come back and watch this, bookmark it, whatever you're going to do. But we're going to dive into everything that's wrong with the movie and maybe the one or two things that it did right. My review is up on the site. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was unwatchable, though. It's just, I think I said it was aggressively mundane.
Mm-hmm. That's about right.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like boring. It's there. It gives the story, but it's not particularly interesting, exciting,
There's
engrossing.
no verve to it. There's no life to it. You know?
Yeah. It feels, and it's really short too. It's like an hour and 40-something minutes.
Yeah.
And it feels like it just. There's a much larger movie, and we do know that there were things that were cut out and reshot and stuff like that. And it feels like they just had a ton of stuff. It didn't really work, so they cut it out, and they almost made it so it set up everything, and then was in a hurry to get out at the end.
You could say it was all foreplay.
Oh,
terrible! I know. Downvote that, I guess, right? Anyhow, this is what he's going to put up with every day from me.
Yep.
So, okay, so yeah, it's all build up, all origin. Most of it is set like indoors. It looks, I think,
in
I
like
said
labs, warehouses,
a base,
boardrooms.
Like it looked like it was shot in a storage unit. Seriously, like and it was just so dreary all around, So that's the first big problem I had with the movie is it's not fun. And I do associate Fantastic Four with it being fun.
Right, yeah. And it's I don't think the movie had to do like the fun, whimsy, like crazy space adventures of the comics. You can do sort of a hard sci-fi, more serious version of the Fantastic Four, but this is not how to do it. I would not describe this as fantastic. I'd call them the fundamentally flawed four.
That's right. Well, let's break them down character by character and see, including Dr. Doom, and what they got right, what they got wrong. Let's start with the main protagonist, Reed Richards, who I'd like to point out, in every piece of artwork, every promotional image for this movie, he's never using his powers. It's like, hey, Thing, what's your power? Well, I'm a giant rock monster. Oh, Invisible Woman? Pretty self-explanatory. I'm the Human Torch. Guess what I do? Hey, Mr. Fantastic, what's your power? I stare off pensively off camera. Like, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So,
I will agree. I noticed that as well. That's interesting. I think it's because maybe he is the silliest of all their powers.
Yeah.
But one thing I did like was in the movie, he got that kind of cool action scene where he took down
all three of them.
There was like 5.
I don't know. I think your math is off, but go on.
What? Well, no, I thought it was cool how he used his powers like in a cool way to take down these guys, and he bends
that was
out of the
fun.
way.
The wood sequence. Now, what's weird, though, is that you actually have an issue with, and I do as well, he just flees at one point. He
sees
off.
what has happened to Ben, and then he just runs off. When we really never understand quite why, he's like, I'm scared. Well, yeah, but why? Like, what did you think was going to happen? And when he was off in the woods, he didn't really do anything. He came back with like no consequences. Everybody was like happy to see him again.
Yeah, I mean, you get the sense that, okay, he's trying to build maybe another teleportation device.
Yeah, and he was looking for Ben as well.
Yeah.
But like, what was he doing out there for the year? Like,
he was like channeling his inner Bruce Banner, Jason Bourne, or something. Although I did like the little thing about him changing the look of his face at one point. Yeah.
Okay. It's cool that he could do that, but it was kind of like a weird thing. I kept kind of like squinting. I was like, what's up with that? And then once he undid it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of cool. But
he's really the only one of these characters that isn't kind of a cipher. He's still bland.
Yeah.
Like, he's the boy genius. Like, I actually thought the kid version of Reed Richards was a more compelling character to watch on screen.
Yeah.
It did kind of remind me a little bit of little George Clooney character in Tomorrowland, the boy genius. But at least that kid, like, I don't know. I mean, I thought that of all the characters, Reed's the only one that they seem sort of invested in, but it wasn't enough.
Didn't really do it. I will say that, the character's bland, but I will say Miles Teller, he's a fantastic actor. All of them are Toby Kebbell, Michael B. Jordan,
cast.
everybody.
Mara,
it's a great
Jamie
cast.
Bell,
They couldn't have more talent. So I think it really just was the script and the direction of the movie.
Yeah, it's a mirthless story with an unenthusiastic direction. Any final comments on Reed Richards or any of the
Yeah,
aspects of his character?
I didn't feel it, and especially like his romance with Sue. Like you just kind of like
Well,
awkwardly.
there is none.
Yeah,
like he's just kind of flirts with her, but
kind
there's
of very
nothing there.
awkwardly too. And I get that he's like the nerd, but it didn't work. It just, it was kind of like meh.
Well, let's talk about Sue Storm. She is the most mature and probably in some ways the most responsible member of that team. But there were times where I'm like, is she supposed to not be all there? Like she seems like she's almost borderline, like to me at a few times, like she reminded me of Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. Like I can only see the patterns, and it's like, I think she's a bit touched. I think and then she also they don't really quite know what to do with her, and the evidence of reshoots is most evident whenever she's on screen because she's got a totally kind of like a wig at that point. It's really obvious because the color of her hair is different.
Yeah.
The styles are different. Everything. It's just such a tip off of like, well, we have to pull a new, part of the story out of her ass. So call back Kate Mara.
Yeah, at one point I thought, oh, maybe when she got her powers, her hair went like more blonde for some reason. And I was like, okay, a slight transformation there. But then in the next scene, like it was back to be like a more dirty blonde. And I was like, oh no, that was a wig. That was a bad wig.
Now, but we both agree on that she doesn't even get her powers in a way that's
oh my
part
gosh,
of what the comics does.
that was the worst. Okay, so all the guys, they're getting drunk and like really high on they want this glory because they like we don't want to be forgotten by history. We're gonna go to the other dimension. And then Reed, and he even goes against his best friend who's not a scientist or anything. He's like, come with us, and they leave her behind.
Yeah, they don't even give her a heads up that hey, we're gonna go do this. Her brother goes, but like nobody's like, should we ask Sue?
They leave Sue. They leave the woman behind, which says like volumes, and then she just happens to get her powers from the explosion when they
which
come back.
Which is weird because I thought the negative zone was supposed to be what affected you.
Yeah, maybe it brought some radiation back and zapped her or something. But the bottom line is that was a horrible thing to happen. They could have come up with anything. Couldn't they invented like a little Herbie robot to come in and like work the computer and
save them?
While they all go? Yeah, I thought that was just ridiculous. That's what they did with her.
And then
no glory for her.
Yeah, but she did. I mean, I liked her powers and stuff. I mean, they are pretty much what they are in the comics and everything. Did you like the visual effects of how they did her powers?
I mean,
which is
I
weird
guess
to say
so.
about invisibility, but okay.
It felt like, I don't know, when she was like flying around, it was a little like stiff. And then at one point, I think she was a special effect and her body looked way too small, like disproportionate to everyone else in the room. And it just all, like the effects just weren't up to par with a superhero movie made in 2015, which I think you said in your review.
I did. Yeah, this is a good segue to The Thing. Let's talk about
oh man,
poor Jamie Bell, good actor.
Great actor.
But Ben Grimm is the most underutilized character in this movie. He disappears as an adult. He disappears for a huge swath of the movie.
Yeah.
And then he just gets this like text from from Reed of like, "Hey man, made it. Oh, you totally gonna come with us? I can't do it without you. Sue, she can wait. But you guy who works in the junkyard, come on, let's go to space, pal. Let's go to the other dimension."
Yeah, he was just so kind of like quiet and didn't have a lot of scenes, didn't have a lot to say in the movie. I kept wanting to like
no real presence.
Yeah, in the comics, it doesn't have to be just like the comics. I'm not a loyalist, but I'm just saying like he was sort of the reason you would read Fantastic Four. He was like Reed and Ben.
Yeah, he had no personality of what you would expect of Ben Grimm or The Thing. And thus you didn't feel really, because you don't spend any time with him.
Yeah.
There's no real pathos for what happens to him.
Yeah.
He's kind of simply along for the ride, literally along for the ride.
Yes.
And then he just sort of, you don't spend any time seeing him having to adjust to his condition. Say what you want about the last, I guess 3 Fantastic Four movies, if you want to include the Corman one. At least you kind of understood what Ben Grimm was going through in his plight.
Yeah.
And you don't get that at all here.
Yeah.
What did you think, though, of the visual effect of The Thing?
It was okay. Like everything in the movie, nothing was like horrible, but it was just
we'll
kind of
get to the horrible in a minute.
There's one in particular you don't like. But I just didn't think, I liked that they tried the visual effects thing because the prosthetic suit, I think it looked better than the suit. that they did, but also it was also just didn't look kind of like claymation at some scenes. It looked really weird.
It never had that kind of. I think it's a high bar now after seeing the Hulk and the Avengers movies.
Yeah.
You can do a photorealistic looking comic book creature.
And like Groot looked,
Yeah,
just of these like kind of otherworldly looking creatures.
And
I did like that he gave him the big blue eyes, because he is, after all, the ever-loving blue-eyed thing.
Yeah.
So it was cool to be able to see into his eyes. But again, his voice, I came to like a lot.
They did modulate it from the stuff that we had seen, but he's not from, he's not from the
Brooklyn.
Or the Lower East Side, where
Yancey Street.
There's no Yancey Street.
Yeah.
They live in Long Island in Oyster Bay, and I'm like, you lose something.
Yeah.
Now,
that was another thing
that
sorry, real quick. The setting, I thought, because it all took place in like these labs and everything, and that they weren't in New York City. New York City is like a big part of Fantastic Four, and of just a lot of Marvel comic books, like Spider-Man and stuff. And so to not have that be a part, to have them take place in these like sterile environments, I thought it really took away from like the personality and charm of the movie.
No, totally.
And especially him too, because he is just,
he's
Ben
a
Grimm
quintessential New Yorker.
Yes, he's grumpy, but he's lovable and he's humble, and he's like a fierce friend to the rest of the guys. And it's just none of that was there. I didn't get that for him.
I don't think he actually even speaks to Sue Storm until the very last scene of the movie.
Yeah.
And
supposed to be Uncle Ben.
And when Johnny is like busted his chops, it just comes across as nasty.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It just seems like he's making fun of the guy because of how he looks, rather than the sort of brotherly sort of ball busting.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about one aspect of what his catchphrase, the Thing's catchphrase.
Oh,
this
my God.
bugged everybody, I think. So why don't you explain to him what the...
In the beginning, when we see young Ben Grimm, and he goes into his house, and his brother, he goes like, it's clobbering time. He starts to physically like abuse him and beat him up, and his mother has to like fend him off.
By beating up the son.
Yeah, by beating him up, yeah. It's like, don't hit him. So it was like this horrible, like shocking moment where it's clobbering time, which
it
is
wasn't a charming big brother giving him he was beating him.
Yeah, it was like bad. Yeah. So for them to turn it's clobbering time, which is his signature thing when he gets into a fight, it's clobbering time, and it's like it's a game on, it's like kind of like Hulk smash, you know what I mean? But for what they did in the movie, it turned into this horrible like abuse thing
to
like
where
a
when PTSD trigger.
When he said and when they said it at the climax when he punched Dr. Doom, I thought maybe afterwards that would have triggered some PTSD and was broken down and crying.
Yeah, no, it felt like a really ill-advised attempt to try and give some reasoning for that line.
Yeah.
Here's a reason. He's a tough guy from New York. He doesn't really need any justification for talking like that.
Yeah, if you're going to do some setup payoff, how about that toy car that they zapped away in the beginning?
Yeah, we never see that.
I kept waiting for them to like step
on it.
I
bet you there's going to be some deleted scene.
Yeah, and he's like, Crunch, what is that? Oh, my car, look, Ben.
All right, well, let's talk about Human Torch, okay? So Johnny Storm, they kind of make him this like Fast and Furious racer, which I guess he's kind of like that in the early comics, right? He likes his cars and all that.
He likes his cars. Yeah, the first time we see him, I like this. It was a nice nod. And the first time we ever see him in a comic book, he's working on a car.
Yeah. Is that scene even in the movie?
No, they clipped it out for the trailer. But he was a street racer, which was cool.
Yeah,
and I like that he had
Although I don't know if I believe him. I think it was the Four Tops that were playing. Like, I don't know. I mean, I like the Four Tops, but I didn't think the guy would be that retro,
Right. Well, they put as many references to
the 60s,
little winks as they could, because it's the four.
Oh, yeah, all right.
And then also,
right,
I liked he had
sense.
like the fire flower, the Mario fire flower, which is a hint to his Human Torch. Even his welding mask had like flames on it.
It had the flames,
hot rod
design
flames. I was like, they're really going over the top on him.
Yeah, but okay, here's the thing. So I guess he's only supposed to be like 18, even though he seems like he's about 28.
Right.
And his crappy Honda, he's got to work for his dad to buy back his car. How much did that piece of crap cost? He's like working in the lab for like another year, gets irradiated or whatever, and it's like, what?
Maybe he souped it up and there's a bunch of stuff under the hood.
I guess so, but geez, seriously? Like, how long did it take to buy back that car? He never did get it back, by the way. Because they kill off his dad, so all that.
Well, now he gets it back because he's gone.
I guess so, right?
Oh, poor guy.
Now, what did you think about him being kind of like a willing tool of the government. You know?
That was weird. Another thing where I felt there was more to that, like other scenes we didn't see that were clipped out.
Because they're using the thing already, and all the stuff we saw in the trailer with the tanks and everything. But it's all just it's all like it's just like a video presentation in this one.
Yeah, it didn't. Again, I felt like we didn't really get to know him enough. I feel like I liked sort of the pieces we got of him, like in his personality and his flair, but I feel like we didn't get enough.
Flair.
And they didn't give flair on. Go to Fridays. But I feel like we didn't get to see him do enough, and especially see him interact and be Johnny Storm with the rest of the cast.
He's not as much of a wise guy or really even as cocky as I expected him to be. He was a bit more subdued.
Yeah.
He's confident, but so what?
Yeah.
Much has been made about the fact that, he has an adopted Caucasian sister in Sue. It's all null and void in this cut of the movie because I think they have 2 scenes together really of some sort of perfunctory exchange.
Yeah.
You never get any, there's a lot of mention of your sister Sue, and clearly she's Dad's favorite, but it's just sort of there. It doesn't really, there's no real familial bond between any of them. And that's a big problem with the movie is you never really see them get to know each other, thus the audience doesn't get to know them, thus you don't give a crap when they finally unite to go after Dr. Doom. You're perfectly right. There's no chemistry. There's no sense. Like some people were like, "Oh, well, at the end, it looks like they're finally the Fantastic Four." And it's thanks.
No, they're not.
They're just a bunch of people stuck together.
I'm not convinced that any of them actually really like each other.
The lead extraordinary gentleman had more chemistry on screen. I'm serious.
Whoa.
Yeah, I went there. What did you think of the fire effects, though? At least.
It was cool.
Yeah. Serviceable.
It was cool. It looked cool. I mean,
were you
we didn't really get
bummed
to see a lot of him doing much and really using it in a lot of ways. So,
well, what did you think of the whole time jump of you never really get to see them master their power. Sue is still trying to do her thing, but they pretty much got them in check.
Yeah, that was weird. The time jump took away the part of the movie where we get to learn about their powers with them, see them, experience them, what if they're horrified by their powers.
What has happened to me? Who am I now?
The 10-minute scene where they're all on in those lab rooms and they're being examined for their powers, and they're really playing off the body horror from The Fly, which is a big tagline for this movie. Of it's not going to be great getting these superpowers, and then we just saw them. We saw it was horrifying. They were playing the music. Reed was crawling through the vents. He was seeing what his friends had turned
and then that
into.
scene where you look back and saw his legs.
Oh
and
yeah.
the wreckage,
and then after that, they just sort of 1 year later, and all the horror was gone. They're fine with their powers.
Well, all the sense of discovery, even.
Yeah, even Ben wasn't really conflicted. He's like, oh, it's part of the deal that they're going to help me be okay. But you never felt his pain that he was actually a monster or anything.
Yeah, and also it wasn't particularly clear to me that Reed was looking to cure anybody else of their condition except for Ben. Which I get that he feels guilty. He dragged his friend along, but you kind of got everyone affected. Drawing a blank. We talked about Sue, right? Yeah.
Yes, but I think now we're for Dr. Doom.
Dr. Doom. Oh.
What do you think of his look, Jim?
I described him as the disco gimp version of the Tin Man. It is a horrible, horrible, god-awful, cheap-looking effect. Seriously, how did that get to that point? How did it get through people checking and being like, yeah, we approve this? I don't get it. It's horrible. Did I mention it was horrible?
In the comics, he just sort of develops this metal skin. And so I think they were just trying to look for a way to do that, and the answer was to fuse his suit to him, so then it gives him the mask look with the ventilation.
Idea,
but I do agree that the final product did not look quite right. And
how did he even get the little pointy Tin Man nose when you look at the mask of the containment suit and they're snubbed?
Oh, right.
Wouldn't he almost have more of a Red Skull kind of thing going on?
Oh, you're right.
How do you get the pointy nose?
Every
other part of you has melted off. Why did your nose stay? You didn't even have that big of a nose to begin with.
And here's the thing that I think the movies have never gotten about Dr. Doom, is that Dr. Doom is not the armor and the green hood. He is ego incarnate, and he has a thirst for power and a desire above all else to prove that he is better than Reed Richards.
Yeah, intellect.
That is not in the movie.
Well, there's no frenemy kind of relationship between him and Reed. There's that awkward sort of like you looking at my girl kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where you're like, really?
And like
That
Doctor
just-
Doom, he clearly had an affection for Sue. Everyone, she was sort of
But that
like
means
the
more to him than
motivation for
anything.
so many
Yeah.
characters. Like, oh, is Sue going to be there? Oh, Sue going to be there?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's
For
like,
both Johnny
really?
and Doom in a way.
Yeah.
It was the only reason.
And they show Doom's affection for her in the creepiest way, not in a good creepy, but a bad creepy. He just looks at her like through the glass.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
that's he's just like staring.
Stalker moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're Doctor Doom, and the most you care, I wish that girl would like me. You're
Yeah.
like, you're Doctor Doom,
Yeah.
man. Although we should point out his name is Victor Von Doom in the
Yes.
movie. It was initially Victor Domashev, but I guess they ditched all that.
They heard the fans and they went back and got rid of it.
Yeah, well, they didn't get rid of enough. Although, it's so anticlimactic because he's really only in the last 20 odd minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
The worst section of the movie, I knew there was a reason why all the promos, you saw that one head turn shot of Doom and that was it.
Because they didn't want you to see the design.
Yeah, and just how horrible it was.
That also felt like super weird, right? For him to be, he comes in after sort of the other characters are set up, and he spends a lot of time with them, and then he disappears, obviously, because he dies.
Yeah.
And then he's gone for a really long stretch of the movie. Then he comes back for just one scene, has these weird powers that first he can make people's heads explode,
do anything.
shoot green energy, lift up rocks. You
yeah,
know, you can do
he can form like big pillars of stone
that turn
out of
into
the earth.
rock
And
portals.
wait, how did the whole portal of the sky thing
How'd that
happen?
even work? Yeah.
Well, did that come from the planet, or was that him doing it? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. And again,
either.
with the sky portal and the beam and
Yeah, the ship came back and somehow he used that energy portal to hold it open with rocks.
well,
and
why does he want to destroy the Earth? I get
And
that
there
he
was a-
knows that human beings suck.
that,
or
he
all
just
that, but-
jumped to like, it was a really big extreme. Like he spent
Yeah.
a year there and was like, no, that other planet I was from's got to go.
yeah. And then they're like, this is my world now. Really? You're not even lonely? Nothing? Like, you're the master of nothing. That's great, you know? What did you think overall, though, of that final battle and the sort of, we finally got to see the Fantastic Four trying to be the Fantastic Four versus Doctor Doom?
I thought it was really awkward and weird, and you could really tell they were on like a kind of like a green screen-ish environment. Especially the shot, which should have been like their Avengers Assemble moment when the four of them are standing side by side, confront Doom. That was really awkward, actually, and especially
It was
when
like,
the movie,
hi.
especially when the movie was so like kind of chill and playing things very serious. To hear Miles Teller, to hear Reed be like, "You got to close the portal, or the dimension will destroy the Earth." To hear him say such weird things like that, it clashed horribly with the tone of the movie.
It wasn't earned. It suddenly shifts violently into being this superhero movie, save the world thing, and it wasn't earned. It wasn't set up. There was nothing there. Overall, final thoughts on the terribleness that's the I should say the steaming mediocrity that is Fantastic Four.
Ultimately, it just was not a good movie. I don't want to see a sequel, really.
No, I don't.
Out of this, again, like I said, all the actors, they're fine actors, great actors, and tons of other movies that I'm a big fan of.
I liked Chronicle, Josh Trank's last movie.
No, and I just think it was just everything they tried to do just didn't work. It's not that Fantastic Four are bad. People are saying they are unadaptable. That's not true. It's just that all of their adaptations have been bad. And ultimately, I don't think this has a future at all. People are saying that, X-Men will cross over to the Fantastic Four.
Don't taint that.
You wouldn't want to bring the X-Men down by putting them with the Fantastic Four. Even today, I think the news broke, the producer said that the X-Men and Fantastic Four are parallel universes. So if they were to jump over, they could cross over, but I think that would be a bad idea at this point.
Yeah, don't cross the streams. All right, guys. Well, we want to know what you think of Fantastic Four. Let us know in the comments below. And for all things Fantastic Four, hopefully better stuff ahead. Keep it here on IGN.